Hello, and welcome to YouDomo. Today, we'll be learning how to retrieve financial statement data for a stock into Excel using an API. Once we have the financial line item data like revenue and net income in our Excel file, we can then create visualizations to see financial trends and analyze our stocks. This can help us assess the health of a company, understand their cash position, and see if their top line fundamentals are trading upward. Now let's get into the spreadsheets. Now that we're in the spreadsheet, we're going to need some data. In the ribbon, I can click on the Data tab and select From Web. Now, how are we going to get this data? We're going to use the YouDomo API that provides us financial statement data for balance sheets, cash flows, income statements. And we also provide mapping logic to standardize the names as well. Now, what is an API? This is an application programming interface which enables us to fetch data from software applications. So, how do we call it? We can go to youdomo.com and we can sign in into our account and then go to API. And this API screen is going to show me my API usage along with my key and secret. So how do we call the API? We can go to the Documentations tab and see that we can request the data through this URL. So I'm going to copy this and paste it in here. We're going to keep is annual as yes. This tells the API that I only want 10K values. We're going to change this to 2026, and we're also going to change this to 2006. For Apple stock, for example, we have 20 years worth of data on this stock. Now, we need to get our API key. So I can go here, back to my account, copy this API key, and then grab my secret. And don't worry, by the time I upload this tutorial, I would have regenerated my keys. So I don't need to worry too much about that. Now, financial statement. YouDomo API provides raw values from balance sheets, income statements, and cash flows. However, we have recently upgraded our YouDomo API and created a new argument you could pass into the financial statement parameter called simple. Now, what does simple do? Essentially, it standardizes the financial line item names to be more cohesive. For example, Apple might call revenue net sales, while Adobe reports it as revenue. Passing the simple value into YouDomo API will return both net sales and revenue as just revenue for both tickers. So this standardization and this mapping in the background makes it so much easier to analyze stocks when financial line items are all called the same thing, making your life and your analysis that much easier. So that being said, I'm going to change income to simple. And I'm happy with analyzing Apple, so I'm going to keep that ticker as is. And I think we're good to go. So I'm going to click OK. We're going to go run a request towards the API. And we see that we got some records. This is in JSON format, so not really legible to us humans, but we can convert it into a table and clicking OK, and then expanding on the records to show each column. We have line item mapping, we have the end date, we have the value, the FP, which is the period. So this is full year. This is the year of report. So this is 2025. And then the filing date, 2025, October 31st. Let's clean this data by assigning the right data types to each column. We have text, we have a date, we have a whole number, We have another text. We can do a whole number for the year, and then another date for the file date. We can also call the name of this query as Apple. I already did one in the background, so I'm just going to call it Apple 1. And then I could actually delete this one since I did that in the background. So I can call it Apple. There you go. So now this data looks clean. I'm going to say close and load. And this is going to create a table in Excel. And this is all of our data that we have on Apple stock. We go all the way back to 2006 for Apple. So we have 20 years worth of data on this stock. So very, very rich API here. Now, let's make this even better for our stock analysis. We can create a pivot table. Let's go to the existing sheet. And then each line item could be its respective row. And then we can add the end date and then the value. How much revenue did they generate? How much in operating cash flow did they generate? We can even make this more legible by turning this into dollar values. And then I think it would be even better if we did keep the year values just like this. That way it's a bit more cleaner. So now each column is a year and the row labels are financial line items. And we have very clean, easy to read line item names like gross profit, long-term debt, net income loss, revenues, very standardized names to easily do some stock analysis with. Now let's create a chart with our new data. We can grab the date row along with revenue. However, since this is a pivot table, if I tried to create a chart, I believe it's going to force me to show everything. Yeah. So we don't really want to do that. That's not really helpful. So what if we did this instead? We can come down here and fetch the date year value. And that way we have the year as a row down here. And then we can grab the line item that we want, which is revenues, and then drag the value over. I'm going to change this into a dollar figure. And then this way, once we create the bar chart, since it's not a pivot table anymore, it's not going to force me to show all the line items all at once. So now we have the revenue of Apple stock all in Excel right here for you to start analyzing. So off the bat, we see that Apple's revenue has been increasing ever since 2007. So we're seeing the top line fundamentals of Apple stock doing pretty well. We're seeing some plateauing in the recent years. We saw a large dip since COVID, and then we saw a recovery, but then we're starting to see a plateau here. So, the next question is, why was there a plateau in the past 4 years? Will the MacBook Neo help increase this revenue stunt in the company? A little side note on the MacBook Neo. It seems to be attracting a lot of customers. So Apple's finally kind of letting go of that elegance and sophisticated marketing, and they're now gearing more towards, the college student, right? Or the everyday user. Maybe not the programmer, but the everyday user who wants to surf the web, check emails. They can have a nice Apple product for, $5.99, I believe it was. So a lot of people already have the iPhone. Now Apple needs to penetrate the PC Mac market and keep people on that ecosystem. So we can also generate more visualizations. Let's say I want to calculate the free cash flow of Apple. That would be super helpful. So we would need operating cash flow, which is in A45. We could drag that out. We would also need CapEx. Cash flow essentially is analyzing, hey, how much money is coming into the company? How much is leaving the company? So let's look for CapEx. So we have capital expenditure in A19. And then we could drag that out as well. I'm going to make these dollar figures to make it more legible. And then we have free cash flow. We want to take the operating cash flow number minus the CapEx and then drag this out. And then, we can have a little fun here, and maybe we could do a bar chart slash line chart if I'm not trigger happy on the keyboard. Okay. So then we can do a combination. Here it is. Okay. So operating cash flow versus capital expenditures, and then free cash flow is the line chart. We can click yes. And then to make this even better, CapEx is leaving the company. So instead of making CapEx a positive number, we can make it a negative number. So we can drag that out. And then instead of minusing it, we can add it since CapEx is already a negative. So we could drag that out once again. And then now we have Apple's free cash flow chart. So all within Excel right here for you. We now have generated Apple's free cash flow chart. So here we can see from 2017 to 2022, the free cash flow has been fantastic. It was growing a lot. And then again, we have a plateau in free cash flow from 2022 to 2025. So now the next valid question to ask is, well, why is Apple's free cash flow stagnant from 2022 and 2025? So this is valuable insight that allows us to visually see financial statements and then ask the right next questions. Why is free cash flow stagnant? Why is revenue stagnant for Apple stock? I hope you enjoyed this video on how to import, download, how to fetch financial statement data into Excel, and how to leverage that stock data in Excel to make financial charts and to learn the next questions to ask for stock analysis. Check out YouDomo.com for the YouDomo API. It's free to create an account, no risk. We also have a 7-day free trial for YouDomo Pro, which unlocks even more data. So create an account today, no credit card required. I appreciate you watching the video to the very end. I appreciate you supporting YouDomo.com and the YouTube channel. Drop a like and subscribe if you enjoy these Excel tutorial content, and I will see you all in the next one.